Rome, January 897 AD. The Basilica of St. John Lateran. The air tastes like damp stone and 7 months of rot. Vatican guards are currently breaching a heavy stone sarcophagus. They aren't looking for holy relics. They are serving legal summons. The guards haul a rigid, waxy figure from the darkness. They drag the remains across the depopulated city to sacristy. Clerics force heavy gold vestments over the stiffened limbs. They prop the figure upright on a marble throne in the apse. This is Pope Formosus. He has been dead since last April, but today he is the lead defendant in a capital case. Pope Stephen VI stands before the throne. He isn't offering a blessing. He is screaming accusations at the rotting flesh. Behind the chair, a terrified teenage deacon cringes in the shadows. He is the only voice the deceased pontiff is allowed to have. I am the Watchman. Case number 05 is officially open. How does the Vatican legally prosecute a man who is already in the ground? We are in Rome, but not the Rome you see on a postcard. The year is 897 AD. The glorious capital of the Caesars is long dead. It is a decaying stone carcass. This is the Dark Century. The papacy is not a holy office here. It is a violent prize for regional warlords. Whoever controls the militia controls the chair of St. Peter. The Vatican is a fortress, not a church. 24 popes will rise and fall in a single century. Most will die from poison or a thin wire in a dungeon. The current muscle in town is the Duché of Spoleto. They hold a deep, lethal grudge against a man named Formosus. He was a brilliant administrator, but to the Spoletans, he was a traitor. Formosus died in April 896 before they could take their revenge. He was likely poisoned. The Spoleto family does not believe in letting the dead rest. They need a public, ritualized shakedown. They need to legally erase Formosus from the books. But there is a massive technical problem. Formosus was the man who made the rules. He was the one who ordained the current Pope, Stephen VI. If Formosus was a fraud, Stephen's own career is a lie. To save his badge, Stephen must destroy the man who gave it to him. Formosus was a high-value asset for the 9th century church. He was a successful missionary who converted entire nations. But in the Vatican, being too popular is a death sentence. Pope John VIII feared Formosus was building a personal power base. In 876, the Pope excommunicated him for treason. Formosus fled Rome to save his life. He signed a deal to stay in exile and live as a layman. This was his first mistake. When the political winds changed, Formosus was reinstated. By October 891, he was elected pope. He inherited a city controlled by the Spoletos. They expected Formosus to be their puppet. He had other plans. He secretly invited a Germanic king to invade Italy and crush the Spoletos, but his protection didn't last long. King Arnulf suffered a stroke and retreated back across the Alps. Formosus was left defenseless in a city that wanted him dead. He died on April 4th, 896. He was buried in St. Peter's Basilica. Normally, the file would be closed here, but the Spoletos marched their militia back into Rome. They found an ally in the new pope, Stephen VI. The exhumation order was signed in January 897. The guards went to the crypt with shovels and ropes. The cadaver synod was a desperate attempt to erase a man's history by destroying his records. But history is far too vast to be deleted. You just have to know where to find the truth. The problem is that conducting a real investigation into the past takes time that most of us don't have. You buy the thick, dusty history books, but they usually just sit on your shelf unread. It sucks to want the knowledge, but have no way to actually consume it during your busy day. That's why I'm happy to recommend Audible. Audible is the premier destination for audiobooks and spoken word entertainment with the largest selection of historical titles on the planet. I've been using Audible for years to keep my case files updated while I'm on the move. There's a reason it's the industry standard for people who take learning and storytelling seriously. Using Audible means you can turn a long commute or a workout into a forensic deep dive. You get professional-grade narration that makes even the darkest parts of the 9th century feel modern and alive. As a member, you get 1 credit every month to spend on any title in their entire premium selection. You also get unlimited access to the Audible Plus catalog, which is packed with thousands of exclusive originals and podcasts. So scroll down, click the link below, start your free trial today, and dive into the cases the world tried to bury. January 897 AD. The Basilica of St. John Lateran is the staging ground. It is the oldest and most important church in Rome. Today, it looks more like a horror movie set. The tribunal is formally convened as a synod. Cardinals and bishops sit in the pews. Most of them are terrified. They are surrounded by the Spolaton militia. In the center of the apse sits the defendant. It is the corpse of Pope Formosus. He has been out of the ground for less than a day. He is propped upright in a massive marble throne. Clerics have dressed him in full papal vestments. Shimmering gold robes cover a body that is 7 months old. The contrast is a visual assault. Papal law requires the accused to have a defense. A teenage deacon is ordered to stand behind the throne. He is legal counsel for a dead man. He is the proxy voice for the silent cadaver. Pope Stephen VI does not sit. He acts as the chief prosecutor. He begins the trial with a screaming tirade. He roars at the waxy, unmoving face of his predecessor. Why did you usurp the Roman See in such a spirit of ambition? The deacon periodically stammers out weak denials. Some accounts say he was forced to confess to being evil. The atmosphere is heavy with the smell of old incense and rot. This is judicial theater at its most deranged. Stephen is performing a ritual called Damnatio Memoriae. He wants to erase Formosus from the history books. He wants to nullify every act the dead man ever performed. But the bishops in the crowd are noticing something. The body isn't falling apart. It isn't a pile of loose bones. It's a rigid, leathery mannequin that refuses to collapse. To the crowd, this was a miracle or a curse. To a forensic investigator, it was a biological inevitability. Formosus had been dead for 7 to 9 months. In a normal Roman summer, he could have been a skeleton, but he wasn't buried in an open field. He was sealed in a stone sarcophagus within a damp crypt. This created a very specific microenvironment. It was cool, wet, and anaerobic. Oxygen simply couldn't get in to fuel the fire of rot. This triggers a chemical process called saponification. In the industry, we call this result adipocere, or more accurately, grave wax. Endogenous bacteria like Clostridium perfecans go to work. They don't just consume the tissue, They hydrolyze the body fat. They convert neutral fats into saturated fatty acids. Think of it like the body turning itself into soap. This creates a rigid, grayish-white shell. It preserves the gross morphology of the face and limbs. It effectively turns the corpse into a macabre mannequin. This is why the guards could prop him on a throne. He wasn't a floppy mess of liquefied tissue. He was a stiff, soap-like statue. During the trial, observers saw something even more disturbing. They said blood began to flow from the dead man's mouth. The physical reality is much more clinical. Manhandling a waxy corpse compresses the chest cavity. This forces dark, liquefied decomposition fluids up through the trachea. It's a purge, not a pulse. Formosus wasn't bleeding for justice. He was leaking the internal pressure of 7 months of decay. Stephen VI was a lawyer with a massive conflict of interest. In the 9th century, a bishop was legally wed to his city. This is the 15th canon of the Council of Nicaea. It strictly prohibits translating sees. A bishop cannot leave a small town for a bigger one. Formosus had broken this rule to become pope. But here's the kicker. Stephen VI had done the exact same thing. By the letter of the law, Stephen was just as guilty, but Stephen found a brilliant, lethal loophole. Formosus was the one who ordained Stephen as a bishop. If Formosus was an illegal pope, his signatures were void. If the signatures were void, Stephen was never legally a bishop. Stephen was using the dead man as a legal eraser. He was scrubbing his own record by destroying the man who wrote it. The verdict? Guilty on all counts. Stephen immediately ordered the ritual mutilation of the corpse. Guards hacked off 3 fingers of the right hand. These were the fingers used to give blessings. By cutting them off, Stephen was physically deleting Formosus's power. Formosus was dragged through the streets in common rags. He was dumped in a pauper's grave and then thrown into the Tiber River. Stephen VI thought he had won, but the ritual humiliation of Formosus backfired. Roman citizens saw a man of God mutilated by a sitting pope. Then the earthquake hit. The literal roof of the basilica caved in. By August 897, an enraged mob stormed the palace. They seized Stephen VI and threw him in a hole. In a dark dungeon, a thin wire found his neck. The prosecutor was strangled to death by his own subjects. Meanwhile, a fisherman pulled Formosus from the river mud. By December, the next pope recovered the body and gave it a second funeral. The cadaver synod was formally nullified in 896 AD. They banned the trial of corpses forever. But history in the 9th century is a revolving door. In 904 AD, Pope Sergius III dug Formosus up for a 3rd time. He had the body beheaded and thrown back into the Tiber. It's a reminder that some grudges don't end at the grave. Case number 05 proves that institutions are built on sand and bone. Humanity is a bottomless well of madness. I'm heading out. Next time, we look at the 1960s. The CIA spent 5 years and $20 million building a feline cyborg. Then, they watched it immediately get hit by a taxi. I am the Watchman. Stay in the light. Now, someone get me a coffee. This atmosphere is depressing.